بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على سيدنا ونبينا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد
وآله الطيبين الطاهرين لا سيما بقية الله في الأرضين أجل الله تعالى فرجه الشريف اللهم أخرجني من ظلمات الوهم وأكرمني بنور الفهم اللهم افتح علينا أبواب رحمتك وانشر علينا خزائن علومك برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. Alhamdulillah, we have tawfiq to continue our study of Al-Fiqh al-Istidlali. As you remember, our discussion was whether sighting the new moon, the crescent, in one place would be sufficient for another place. And we said there are three opinions. We started this from page 486. هل الرؤية في بلد تكفي لغيره? Is sighting in one place, one land, sufficient for others? And we said this, of course, is when it is sighted in the western cities, because if it is sighted in the eastern ones, then for the western cities it's definitely enough, because they have more time. By the time that it's the time for sunset, moon has already gone higher. Yes, if the western city is too much different in horizon or in latitude, then that's different. So as I said, if it is seen, for example, in Iran, would be sufficient for Iraq. Now, then we said about the other way around, when it is sighted in the west, for example, western cities, or when they have different latitude. So there were two options. They are close to each other in the time of Tulu and Ghurub or not. And we said that if they are close, there is no disagreement that it is sufficient. For example, one city in the west, but the city on the east side of it, it's 50 kilometers, for example. That's enough. But if they are not close to each other in Tulu and Ghurub, then here we said there are three opinions. Mashhur, what is more common among our jurists, is that أن لكل بلد حكمه. Every city, every place, every land has its own situation, its own ruling. So you cannot extend it from one city to another city. The second opinion is that it is sufficient. Like when we said they are close to each other in Tulu and Ghurub. And then we said there might be a third opinion. ربما يظهر قول ثالث في المسألة. What is قول الثالث? Is tafsil. To say that it is sufficient for other cities or other lands unless you are sure that it's impossible to see the sight in this place. So seeing it in somewhere else then would not work. But if you are not sure, if there is chance, it's okay. So there are three opinions. We have been discussing the arguments for mashhur, that أن لكل بلد حكمه, we cannot extend it. خب we said قد يستدل للمشهور بوجوه. One argument, الوجه الأول, they said asl requires that. الوجه الثاني قياس القمر على الشمس, to liken moon to the sun. We discussed this. Then we reached الوجه الثالث, page 489. الوجه الثالث. This is where we want to resume the discussion. Al-Wajh al-Thalith is to refer to the hadith that make wujub of sawm or wujub of iftar dependent on seeing the moon. Sawm lil-ru'ya, after lil-ru'ya, and things like that. So they say it means it has to be cited in the same balad, in the same land, in the same place, in the same city. الوجه الثالث الروايات الدالة على إناطة وجوب الصوم والإفطار بالرؤية. The hadiths that indicate that fasting and breaking means fasting for beginning of Ramadan and iftar for the end of it, or you can say beginning of Ramadan and beginning of Shawwal, depends on ru'ya. كصحيحة الحلبي عن أبي عبد الله عليه السلام سئل عن الأهلة. When Imam Sadiq عليه السلام was asked about أهلة, يسألونك عن الأهلة قل هي مواقيت للناس والحج. So Imam was asked about what is أهلة. فقال هي أهلة الشهور. أهلة is plural form for hilal, crescent. So it means crescents for the month. فإذا رأيت الهلال فصم. When you see hilal, month of Ramadan starts. When you see it again, وإذا رأيته, when you see it again, فأفطر. Then it is Shawwal, Eid al-Fitr. So you must break your fast. You cannot fast on the day of Eid. How they argue from this? بدعوة, by claiming that انصرافها إلى الرؤية في بلد المخاطب. They argue, they claim that this sahih or riwayat which are like this sahih, they automatically take our mind to sighting in the land, in the place of the one who was addressed. So Imam says, Som, you. So it means in your balad. Not that if someone sees in another place. You start by seeing it, you end by seeing it, by seeing hilal. انصرافها إلى الرؤيا في بلد المخاطب. You remember I've talked about insiraf in ilm usul a lot. When something comes to your mind as the first option without any extra evidence, this is what comes to you. ومقتضى إطلاق المفهوم عدم الوجوب إذا لم يره في بلده. When it says som لرؤيا, means if you don't see it, you don't need to fast. Yeah, this is mafhum. Mafhum for fi'l am is that, and or you can say جملة شرط إذا رأيت is that if you don't see it, you don't need to fast. مقتضى إطلاق المفهوم, like إن جاءكم فاسق فتبينوا, إن جاءكم فاسق بالنبأ فتبينوا. We say from this we understand that if a righteous person brought us news, then we don't need to do tabayyun. Not that we must not do tabayyun. Tabayyun becomes haram. No, it means wujub is not there. Adamul wujub, not hurma. مقتضى إطلاق المفهوم عدم الوجوب إذا لم يره في بلده وإن رؤي في غيره. So if someone in another city has sighted the moon for beginning of Ramadan and you have not sighted, then you don't need to observe Ramadan because you have not done ru'ya. The answer is this. لو سلمنا الانصراف. Suppose we accept that these hadiths are munsarif, means they automatically take our mind and are understood by us as balad al-mukhatab. But who said that these hadiths were meant to indicate this aspect? You know, in al-Usul, when we talked about muqaddamat al-hikmah for itlaq, we had one example, very famous. For example, Quran says, "Kulu mimma amsakna halalan tayyiba." It's about kilab mu'allam, the dogs which are trained and taught for hunting. If there is a prey which is hunted by this dog, according to details which are discussed in fiqh, then it is halal. So with respect to tazkiyah, slaughtering, the ayah says it's okay. But what about washing? Because dog with his mouth which is wet is taking this. Can we say it doesn't need to be washed because it says eat halal and tayyiba? We say no. This ayah is not, meaning to explain that side. Bisadad al-bayan is not bisadad al-bayan for tahara as najasa. It's bisadad al-bayan for hurma and hilliya, whether it is mita or not. But it's not about tahara and najasa. You must wash it. So we always say that there must be a text which wants to explain this point, and then if it is silent and doesn't mention conditions, we say, okay, it's mutlaq, it's general. So, لو سلمنا الانصراف, if we accept that the text is munsarif and doesn't distinguish between it's general that it should be in your own land, doesn't distinguish between different east or west or whatever. We say this انصراف إنما يتم لو كانت الروايات بصدد بيان أنحاء الرؤية. If these hadiths were trying to explain what kind of ru'ya is sufficient or insufficient, and they remained general and mutlaq, didn't specify anything, we say, okay, any ru'ya, whether it is in your balad or another balad, is okay. But we are not sure the ayah wants to, or these hadiths want to explain this aspect. It seems to us that these hadiths are explaining that rely on ru'ya in contrast to qawl al-munajjimin, or I don't know, speculations, etc. This hadith want to say rely on ru'ya. But it's not meant to explain ru'ya in your balad or other balad. It's like I said, kulu mimma amsakna is not meant to explain tahara and najasa. The focus was on whether it is mita or not. لو سلمنا الانصراف فإنما يتم. This انصراف would be complete and can be a proof. لو كانت الروايات بصدد بيان أنحاء الرؤية والحال أنه يحتمل كونها بصدد بيان اعتبار الرؤية في مقابل الاعتماد على الظن وقول المنجمين ونحوهم. So they want to say ru'ya in contrast to other methods is valid. But what type of ru'ya? This doesn't want to talk about that. From إذا رأيت الهلال فصم وإذا رأيته فأفطر, you cannot understand that. Means any sighting is enough, whether you have sighted yourself in your city or some people in other cities. الوجه الرابع أن لازم كفاية الرؤية في البلاد الأخرى. The fourth argument for قول مشهور, I repeat, قول مشهور is that only it is sufficient for its own balad where it is cited. So they say if we say citing in other balad is sufficient, then it has one unacceptable implication, and that is sometimes the month may become 28 days. You cannot accept, because in lunar calendar month is either 29 or 30. It can never be 28. If it is 28, you made mistake in calculation, either in the beginning or in the end, or maybe even both. So they say if we say ru'ya in other places it's enough for our place, it implies that ahyanan, on occasions, sometimes shahr, month, becomes 28 days. Like what? Imagine we have 3 places, A, B, C. In A, moon is sighted Monday. In B, it is sighted on Tuesday. If we take beginning of one of them, which is Tuesday, and the end of the other one, which is earlier, so it started on Monday, and we consider end according to the one which started on Monday, then end becomes 1 day earlier. I repeat, we have A, B, C, 3 lands. A started on Monday. B started on Tuesday, based on sighting. Then for end of it, again they are sighted with 1 day difference. So if you take the beginning of the second, Tuesday, and the end of the A, which is 1 day earlier, so you start 1 day late and finish 1 day earlier, so it becomes 28. So then C, if wants to follow beginning of one of them and end of the other one, then we have 28 days. This is unacceptable. We don't have any lunar month which is 28 days. أن لازم كفاية الرؤية في البلاد الأخرى صيرورة الشهر أحيانا 28 يوما. Sometimes become 28 days. How? كما لو رؤي هلال رمضان في بلد قبل الآخر بيوم. The crescent of Ramadan is sighted in one place, place A, 1 day before place B. وكذا هلال الشوال. Also, at the end, also one of them, A, is sighted before B, 1 day earlier. Started 1 day earlier and ended 1 day earlier. So, لو أخذت لبلد ثالث C البداية من الثاني والنهاية من الأول لكان الشهر الثالث 28 يوما. The third month becomes 28 because it started one day late and ended one day earlier. خب. This is not good point. Why? Because if in the place A you had cited the moon, why you said in B you started another day later? If it is cited on Monday in A, so B also had to start, because our point is that it is sufficient. So they should start together, they should end together. It never becomes 28. أن الرؤية إذا تقدمت في البلد الأول في البداية والنهاية فيلزم على البلد الثاني متابعته. So in A becomes the same, in B becomes the same. Therefore, we don't have any problem with C being the same. The issue of becoming 28 doesn't apply. ومعه فلا يتم ما ذكر. ما ذكر أو ما ذكر. What has been said or what they say is not complete. We don't have problem of 28. خب. This was all about قول المشهور, that it would only be sufficient for the same balad. Again, I go to page 488. Arguments started, and 487, beginning of discussing أما الثاني فقد اختار الشيخ أن لكل بلد حكمه. Every place has its own ruling, so they don't follow each other in necessarily in beginning of Ramadan or end of Ramadan. So this, alhamdulillah, we finished. Now we want to discuss what Allah has attributed to some of our ulama, al-qawl bil-kifaya, that it is sufficient. So far we were saying it's not sufficient. Now let us see, what about those who say it is sufficient? If it is seen in one place, it can be useful for others. وَقَدْ يُسْتَدَلُّ لِلْقَوْلِ الثَّانِي بأن خروج القمر من المحاق الذي تتحقق به بداية الشهر القمري أمر لا يختلف باختلاف البلدان بخلاف الشمس. For Shams, we start in every land according to the sunrise, sunset. What time is the day starting in your place is different from when it starts in another place. But for Qamar, they say when Qamar comes out of Mahaq, I explain what is Mahaq. It's like moon, or the Qamar was in a well. You are not able to see it. Then when it comes above horizon, so much that you can see it, we say khuruj min al-mahaq. So they say أن خروج القمر من المحاق الذي تتحقق به بداية الشهر القمري أمر لا يختلف باختلاف البلدان. This is something that would not differ. When they make calculation, Qamar is always in either Mahaq or out of Mahaq for every place. When say, for example, now the moon of months of Ramadan has come out of Mahaq, it's for the whole earth, not just for one land. أمر لا يختلف باختلاف البلدان. And this is why then those who are on the western side, they have better chance, because they have the beginning of Qamar coming out of Mahaq the same. Those who come later, Qamar is higher. If Qamar was going to have khuruj min al-mahaq for every place separately, then there shouldn't be any difference between Western or Eastern. بأن خروج القمر من المحاق الذي تتحقق به بداية الشهر القمري أمر لا يختلف باختلاف البلدان بخلاف الشمس, unlike the sun. فإن لها مشارق ومغارب باعتبار كروية الأرض. Sun, as we said, has east and west, and this changes. Therefore we say east and west. ومعه فإذا رؤي القمر في بلد, when it has one خروج من المحاق, so if it is sighted in one place, it means that it's out of mahaq and it's visible. دل على خروجه من المحاق. So this would be for us beginning of the lunar month. تتحقق بذلك بداية الشهر القمري لجميع بقاع الأرض. وبكلمة أخرى, in other words, إن رأي المشهور, the opinion of Mashhur, which says no, لكل بلد حكمه, that opinion is based on a false assumption. مبني على تخيل ارتباط خروج القمر ببقاع الأرض. It's based on false imagination or assumption that coming of the moon out of mahaq is similar to sun and varies from this buq'ah min al-ard, this place on the earth, to another place. لكنه قياس باطل. But this likening, this comparison is false. Sheikh Irvani says, yes, you are right. When it comes to the month, according to astronomy, we have the same for all over the earth. But when we are talking about religious month, when from a religious perspective month starts or ends, it can be different. وفيه أن هذا في الشهر الفلكي فهو الذي يتحقق بذلك وبه تحصل بداية الشهر لجميع البقاع والكلام في الشهر الشرعي. Our concern is about religious shahr. What is the definition of religion of month? وَلَعَلَّهُ مَنُوطٌ بِأُمُورٍ ثَلَاثَةٍ. Maybe we can say there are three elements in religious shari understanding of the moon. Number one, al-khuruj min al-mahaq. This is in Shahr Falaki as well. Number two, al-wusul ila haddin tumkinu ru'yatuh. It should also reach a place, a limit that can be seen. Because when it comes out of mahaq at the beginning cannot be seen. It has to rise so that it can be seen. Number three, ru'yatuhu fil balad. Maybe the third condition for religious shahr, religious month, is that it must be seen in the same place, not in another place. What is wrong if Sharia says, I need these three things? For me, Shahrul Falaki is not enough. I want Shahr Shari. And Shahr Shari is, it should be visible by people. Because if it is not visible, it makes it difficult for people to understand. إن هذا احتمال. There is such a possibility, probability. لا ينتفي ببطلان القياس المتقدم. If you say qiyas and comparison of moon with the sun is wrong, we say, okay, moon is different. But for moon, I have extra conditions. The only way to reject this ihtimal is to refer to hadith. If you want to refer to hadith and say based on the hadith it's enough to see in one place for another place, then your argument would be based on hadith, not on these considerations that you raised. إنما يمكن نفيه يعني هذا الاحتمال ذا احتمال لا ينتفي ببطلان القياس. This probability cannot be rejected with saying that that comparison, that likening is not enough. The only way to reject it is بالروايات. إنما يمكن نفيه بالروايات. But if you reject it with riwayat, so riwayat has become your argument, not the that month has the same خروج من المحاق everywhere. لكن التمسك آنذاك سيكون بها يعني بالروايات لا بالوجه المذكور. This argument which we had here. وبكلمة موجزة, in brief words, إن بطلان القياس المتقدم لا يصلح بمجرده وجها لكفاية الرؤية في أي بلد. You said this qiyas of sun to the moon is batil. Okay, but this doesn't finish the job. It's not enough to say that if you see in one place is enough for other places. Why? Because there are three things important and needed and required for having religious month. One of them is خروج من المحاق. Another is الوصول إلى حد تمكنه رؤيته, and third is رؤيته في البلد. لاحتمال اعتبار الأمور الثلاثة في تحقق الشهر الشرعي. We have three factors. One of them, okay, is there. خروج من المحاق. What about the other two? So this is the first argument for saying that it is sufficient, but we have problem with it. The second argument that they have, بما دل على إناطة وجوب الصوم والإفطار بالرؤية فإن مقتضى إطلاق الرؤية كفاية تحققها في البلدان الأخرى. They say when obligation of fasting or iftar, fasting for beginning of Ramadan, iftar for Shawwal, when it is made dependent on ru'ya. So what is the requirement? فإن مقتضى إطلاق الرؤيا كفاية تحققها في البلدان. You want ru'ya? Okay, ru'ya has happened in another city, in another country. If you want ru'ya. This argument has the same problem that we said before, that maybe these hadiths are talking about the ru'ya in contrast to قول المنجمين, etc. Not about whether ru'ya has to be in one place or in another place. The third argument is بمقتضى القاعدة. They say we act according to the قاعدة. What is the fiqh here, ruling here? فإن مفهوم الشهر لم يحدد في الشرع. Month is not something that Sharia has defined it. It's not something introduced by Sharia so that Sharia defines it. People, when they hear shahr, month, in Farsi we say mah, they have a meaning in their mind. When they hear, something comes to their mind. We should refer to people, to urf, to common people, to public opinion. It's not a religious terminology. Like day, night, for example. إن مفهوم الشهر لم يحدد في الشرع فيرجع فيه إلى العرف. It's not defined by Sharia, so we refer to urf. What is the opinion of urf? Urf means common sense, public. عرف يرى أن القمر متى خرج من المحاق ووصل إلى حد تمكن رؤيته تحقق بذلك الشهر لجميع البقاع. They say, according to Urf, when moon comes out of mahaq, comes above horizon and you can see it, okay? If it is lower than horizon, you cannot see. If it is exactly horizon, again, you cannot see. It has to be above that. It should reach a level that you can see. These people want to claim that for Urf, it is enough that the moon comes above horizon and is seen in one place. They say this is enough for all over the earth. What is the answer? Sheikh Irwani says, إن الكبرى وإن كانت مسلمة إلا أن مقامنا ليس من مصادیقها لورود تحديد الشرع وجوب الصوم بالرؤية. You know, Sughra and Kubra. Sughra is minor premise, Kubra is major premise. He says the Kubra here is okay. We don't have problem with Kubra. The problem is whether misdaq Sughra has happened or not. For example, you say A is B and kullu B C. Okay, for example, Socrates is mortal, or Socrates is a human being. Every human being is mortal, so the conclusion is Socrates is mortal. Socrates insanun, kullu insanin fan, Socrates fan. So kullu insanin fan is kubra. Every human being is mortal, it's kubra. Then we can apply it to Socrates and say Socrates is also fan. But if there is something that I don't know whether it is a human being or not, I cannot say because kullu insanin fani, so this is also fani. Thabbit al-arsh thumma anqush. First establish that this is insan and say then we know kullu insanin fani. Okay? إن الكبرى وإن كانت مسلمة إلا أن مقامنا ليس من مصادیقها. Why? Because this is not where Urf is the judge, because something was known to the Urf and we are also to follow the understanding of Urf. Here, Shari, legislator, has its own understanding. لورود تحديد الشرع وجوب الصوم بالرؤية, because Shar' here means Sharia, the law, has limited and defined the obligation of fasting based on ru'ya. It says, I'm not concerned about what people think it's the beginning of the month or end of month. I want you to follow ru'ya. وآنذاك إما أن يدعى الإطلاق. Then we are after ru'ya. So either we should say itlaq, which means any ru'ya in any place, فَيَثْبُتُ الْقَوْلُ الثَّانِي. Then the second opinion will become acceptable, because second opinion was it's enough for everywhere. The first opinion, mashhur, was only for balad that sighting has taken place. So إما أن يدعى الإطلاق فيثبت القول الثاني for every بلد أو الانصراف إلى بلد المخاطب فيثبت القول المشهور, because قول مشهور says it's enough for everywhere. Avel ijmal, or we say that it's ambiguous. When it is ambiguous, then you have to find other resources, references, arguments that can help. If you don't have a specific hadith for something, what do? You go to the general principles that you have that can be sorted out. If there is a specific hadith, it will be prioritized. Otherwise, we should go to according to asl. أو الإجمال فيرجع إلى ما تقتضيه الأصول لا العرف. Usul, for example, asalatul bara'a. In the beginning of the month of Ramadan, for example, we assume that Sha'aban is finished. Is not finished. Ramadan has not started. There is no taklif upon you. So, urf cannot here help. لا مجال له يعني للعرف بعد ورود التحديد الشرعي. When religiously something is defined. You know, this is one issue that many times people ask. You know, they say, why for beginning of Ramadan, end of Ramadan, I don't know, beginning of the day, end of the day, we need to refer to Maraja. Why we cannot refer to scientists? When should I say Salatul Fajr? When I should say Salatul Maghrib? When Ramadan starts? When Shawwal starts? They say, why we cannot go to scientists? The answer is that scientists can tell you something that is scientific. They cannot say what you need in Sharia. Sharia can have its own understanding. He says, for me, this is the criteria for beginning of the day. I tell you criteria. If science can help you establish this, that is fine, no problem. For example, I say it should be after Fajr Kadhib, another Fajr is there, Fajr Sadiq, that is what I want. Would be horizontal rising of light, not Fajr Kadhib, which is vertical. My expectation is this. If science can help you to understand when this happens, that's fine. But you cannot say, because even if you look at science, science cannot say what is day. There are many different, calculations based on what is day. The same is with month, etc. So لا مجال له يعني للعرف بعد ورود التحديد الشرعي. تحديد with ha. This tahdid is not with hawaz, which means to threaten. This tahdid means to define. When shar'an something is defined, the boundaries are fixed, then urf cannot do anything. Okay, then we have to discuss hadith. They say there are some hadiths which are mutlaq. They don't say it is only for one balad, for one land. It says it is sufficient, and it is mutlaq, means then sufficient for everyone, every place. This takes time. Inshallah, we discuss it next week, bi'aznillah. Alhamdulillah, Rabbil Alameen.
Thank you very much, Sheikh.
May Allah bless you, inshallah. Is there any question?
Sheikh, just a little question. You mentioned that scientists cannot define day.
Yeah.
I think it is only science that defines day, right? Day, when the sun is out, that is day, right?
What does it mean it's out?
When the sun rises, then
Sunrise?
it's day.
No. So our definition is not sunrise.
No, not our, but the scientists define the day as that.
No. Scientists tell you, what do you want? Do you want sunrise? Do you want Fajr? Do you want where the see men, start, for example, traveling. There are lots of different elements. It's like, for example, an engineer says, tell me what you want, I will make for you. But I don't tell you, what you should want. Yeah? Do you want bicycle? You want motorcycle? You want car? You want train? You want plane? You should decide. Okay? Scientists cannot say what is needed in your religion as beginning of day or end of the day.
That is true.
Yeah. And maybe our Sharia, in order to make things easy for people, said just follow the time that you are seeing. Wanted to make things easy and something that everyone can understand. Didn't want to make it dependent on very precise astronomical beginning of the month or end of the month. The same is, for example, we have this issue about death. Maybe medically you can say, death is when brain dies, or maybe, when all activities stop, etc. Yes. But we need to see what Sharia wants. Maybe Sharia says, for me, death is when everyone knows that someone is dead, so that there is no doubt. They don't make mistake in thinking that someone has died and leave it. I want you to be showing maximum respect to the life. So Sharia has its own definition.
Thank you.
May Allah bless you, inshallah. التماس الدعاء.
Master, thank you.
Thank you. التماس الدعاء. في أمان الله.